going to do a quick little foci review here, all right, dealing with an ellipse. Hopefully you guys have your picture of your ellipse in your journal, all right? So, by the way, quick little review. Does anybody know what this distance right here all the way across is called in orange that I just did? No. That's the major axis, okay? All right, what about this guy right here? The blue? It's the minor axis. Okay, now the major axis will always equal 2 times your A value, okay? And the minor axis will always equal 2 times the B value. Now you're like, what the heck is A and what the heck is B? So right here, if you would, in your little drawing, you put that's B, and that's B. That distance from the center to the covertex and from the center to the other covertex is B. And A is represented by, from the center all the way to the vertex. That's the A value, and that's the other A value. So over here they have a little equation that they have. Now I've given you this equation, except it wasn't an f squared equals p squared minus q squared. It was c squared equals a squared minus b squared. So that's what we used earlier. I want you to understand it's the same formula, okay? But here's what it says. It says f represents what's called the focal length. Now what is the focal length? It says it's the distance between each focus. So the focal length is the distance between this focus to this focus. That's what's called the focal length. All right. So right now, what makes an ellipse an ellipse? I want you guys to understand that if I were to create another distance, let's say I go from here to there, sorry, from here to there, and I go from here all the way to there, no matter what, these distances will always be equal from the focus to any point to the other focus. So I could draw another one. And all of these distances, no matter what, those sums would always add up to be exactly equal to each other, which basically means the distance from here all the way across. All right, so what are we going to be doing today? Pretty easy. Let's go over here. Let's take a look at it says plot the foci of the ellipse. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at this. We have the center. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I were to create this ellipse in the equation, here's how I would create it. Ready? We have x plus 4 squared plus y minus 3 squared. I'm going to put equals 1. What am I going to put for underneath my x's? What's this distance squared? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 squared is 25. What's this distance squared? 1, 2, 3, 4. That is 4 squared. That's 16. So this is called my A value. Why? Because it's the major. That's A being what? Squared. This is B being squared. C squared is A squared minus B squared. What does that become? 9. So we got what? C equals 3. So check this out. Right here, where would the foci go? They wouldn't go vertically, they would go horizontally. Why are they going horizontally? Because they're always going to be with what axis? The major axis. So I'm literally from the center, I'm going to go over 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put a point right there. I'm going to go over here. 1, 2, 3. Put a point right there. And I plot the two foci. How do I find the foci? What I just did. That's how you find them. So here we go. From over here, I'm going to plot one. Over here, I'm going to plot the other. All right. If you mess up, what can you do? Throw it in the trash. Check it. Let's do one more. If you would, help me create the ellipse that goes with this. I'm going to start with x's, okay? Where's my center at? 3, 0. So it's going to be x minus 3 squared over something, right? I'm just going to put y squared. Why? Because it doesn't go up or down, so it's y squared equals 1. Now we got to figure out which is the major axis and which is the minor axis. Let's count here. We go from what? 0 to 10. So how many units is that? That's 10. That's with the y's. So that's what? That's going to be 100. I have what? -5 right there to a what? 3. So we got 3 to an 11. So that's 8. So that's going to be, whoa, didn't mean to put it there. Sorry. 64. Because that's 8. Now, this does not represent a squared. What does that represent? That represents b squared. This represents a squared. Does that make sense? So what am I going to do once again? C squared equals a squared minus b squared. Well, what is a squared? 100. What's b squared? All right. Take those away. What do you get? And what would c equal? 6. Now, where do I put it, though? I'm not going to put it horizontally. I'm going to put it vertically. So how many am I going to count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So one goes right there, and the other one goes down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are my two foci. Okay? So right here, I'm going to go up. From here, I got to go up 6. Here, I got to go down 6. Why do I have to go vertically? Because it's longer vertically than it is horizontally. All right? I'll do one more, and we'll just pause the video and move on. All right? So here we go. Where's the center of my ellipse? Right there. So I'll put x plus 7 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 1. All right. Okay, what do we got here? We got a -7 to a -4.5. So what's my gap there? Just 2.5? Looks like that's 2.5. So I got to do what with that 2.5? I got to do 2.5, and I got to square it, which I think is 6.25. Then I got 9.5 minus a 3. So what is that? 6.5. So 6.5. So I got to do 6.5 squared. Wow, hold on. 42.25. Okay. So that's 42.25. All right. So what does this guy represent? That represents the a squared. This represents the b squared. So c squared equals 42.25 minus 6.25. Does that still give me 36? For those of you who are with me. Is that still? All right, so what does c equal once again? 6. So I got to go, looks like I got to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. And right there for it to work. Remember, your foci have to be along the major axis, not along the minor axis. All right. Oops, where am I? There it is. So right there and right there. Woohoo! All right. All right, now we're going to look at foci of an ellipse from an equation. So if we look at the equation, what would you guys say my a squared is equal to on this? 289, yeah. And so my b squared has to equal 64. All right. So if we take 289 and we take away 64, we're left with 225. All right. So c squared will equal 289 minus 64, which is 225. So what would c equal? 15 if we take the square root. Now, here's the thing. Is this going more horizontally or more vertically? It's going more horizontally, right? So let's think about this. You need to know how to find the center of your ellipse. So what is the center of our ellipse? The center is at a 12 and a 3. And being that the foci are going to be going horizontally, right? What am I going to have to do to this 12? What am I going to have to add to it? I'm going to have to add a 15 that way, and I got to do what on the other side? I got to take away a 15 on the other side. So if I have to go 15 to the right and 15 to the left, the y values will stay the same, but the x values are going to change. So let's just call it, ready? Let's call it focus 1 and call it focus 2. So if the center is right there, what would be my focus 1? It'd be at a -3 and a 3, because if I took away 15 to the left, I'm over at a -3. What would be my focus 2? 27 and a 3, because remember, we're going horizontally. Now, you can always, listen, if you get stuck, you can always type these babies into Desmos so you can see what they look like. All right? So help me out real quick. It won't take long. I just want to do one where so whoever's watching can see it. We have, let me do a fraction. It was x minus 12 squared over, is it 289? Okay. And we have plus, and then it was y minus 3. Okay. And it was 64, put equals a 1. All right. So I'm going to zoom out. Remember, where did I say the center was at? I said the center was at a 12 and a 3. So there's the center. What did we say focus 1 was at? -3, 3. There's focus 1. There's focus 2. Can you guys see how that makes sense? It's going horizontally, not vertically. So the y values stayed the same and the x values went plus or minus the 15. So when you guys are doing these problems, make sure, where am I? Right here. Right. Where is it? Oh, it is. -3, 3, and 27, 3. Just make sure you choose the correct answer. I'll just do one more, and that'll be it for today. All right. It says, first thing we got to find is we got to find the center. What's our center on this one? -8, -9. Once again, this is our a squared, this is our b squared. So c squared will equal 169 minus 25. Looks like that's going to equal what? 144? So here's what I want you guys to see. When I say c equals what, plus or minus 12? Plus or minus 12, because we've got to go to the left and we got to go to the right. Why do we have to go to the left and to the right? Because the major axis is running left and right, not up and down. So if I take away 12 from that, what's my focus 1 going to be at? If I take away 12 more, I'm going to be way over at a what? Negative 20 and a negative 9. And focus 2, if I add 12 to that, will be at a 4 and a negative 9. So I'm looking for negative 20, negative 9, and 4 and a negative 9, which is right there. Okay. You guys don't have to watch this. You guys go ahead and move on. I'm just going to do one more. We have 46 minus 26, and it looks like they were really nice, and they didn't make you simplify that. Okay? Technically, what would be a better answer if you probably saw it instead of plus or minus square root of 20? What would this radical simplify to? 2 radical, because that breaks down to a what? But they were nice. They just kept it as an unsimplified radical. And what is this going to do? It's going to go left and right once again, because unfortunately, I wish they would give us one where the y values were bigger. Okay, but it's still going to be, where are we starting out at? We're starting out at a 0 and a negative 8. And from the 0, what's going to be my foci? Where's focus 1 and where's focus 2? The y values stay the same. I'm going to do a negative square root of 20, negative 8, and a positive square root of 20, negative 8. So they put 0, right? 0 minus 20, negative 8, and 0 plus square root of 20, minus 8. So it looks like it's going to be answer choice B. Okay. All right. So that's all you guys have to do on this. All right, here it says write an equation for an ellipse centered at the origin. Well, that makes it easy. All right. And which has a foci at plus or minus 12, 0, and vertices at plus or minus 13, 0. Okay? It didn't say co-vertices, it said actual vertices. Just remember, if we do a review, remember, these are the vertices, so it's going to look like this. All right? So I'm just going to do a quick little sketch of this ellipse. This is not going to take long at all. It's going to make a little sketch. I know it's going to run this way. All right? Now, it says write an equation for an ellipse centered at the origin. So put right there. There's the origin. I'll just call it 0, 0. All right. And then here, one of the vertices is at a 13, 0. And the other vertex is at a negative 13, 0. And the two foci are right here. I'm going to call it focus 1. I'm going to call this focus 2. Now, what's the distance there to there? Oh, sorry. From there to there, from there to there. That's the plus or minus 12, okay? So this is 12 units, this is 12 units. Now, what does this represent? This represents our C value, right? That's our C value. What does the 13 represent? That represents our A value, okay? So remember, ready? C squared equals A squared minus B squared. So here we go. What's our C value? 12 squared. So we get 144 equals 169 minus B squared. If I take away 169 from both sides, I get negative 25 equals a negative B squared. After all that work, what is B squared equal to? 25. So we're gonna keep it that way. Now B is equal to plus or minus 5, but we don't need B, we need B squared. So here we go. We're gonna go x squared over something plus y squared over something equals 1. What has to go here? The A or the b. But being that we drew it this way, because I drew it according to what they gave us, we know the a squared is 169, and we know the b squared is 25. And that's the equation. So what do you guys need to know how to use? Use that formula right there. Okay? Use that formula that gives you your a squared and your b squared. There's my a squared. There's my b squared. Now I'm going to carefully type this in. You'll see that I got it right. 1 second. Type that in real quick. So we have x squared over 169 plus y squared over 25 right here equals 1. Okay. All right, this one's a little bit trickier. All right, it says we're still centered at the origin, but it says the foci are plus or minus the square root of 8, comma 0, and its co-vertices are 0 plus or minus the square root of 10. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm just going to draw the ellipse as best I can. I'll change colors. It's just too bright. Here. There's my ellipse. Where's the center once again? It's at 0, 0. And it says that focus 1 and focus 2, my foci, are at I'll put negative radical 8, 0, and positive radical 8, 0. Oh, all right. And then we have from here going up and here going down, we have the co-vertices. So the co-vertices are at 0 radical 10 and 0 minus negative, sorry, I put negative radical 10. So what does that mean? This is your b value. This is your b value. So what do you think your b squared value would equal? 10. Okay? What's your c squared value going to equal? 8. Now we're almost done. If we know our b squared is 10 and our c squared is 8, what's the only thing we're looking for? We're just looking for our a squared. Now listen, what did I say? I said c squared was equal to what? C squared equals a squared minus b squared. What's our c squared value? 8. What's our a squared value? Heck if I know. What's my b squared value? 10. So I got what? Sorry, I put squared there. I'm sorry, my apologies. Hold on 1 second. Messed up. Boom. They're not squared. I've already squared them. Okay? So what does a squared have to equal? If I add 10 to this side and I add 10 to this side, what does a squared end up equaling? 18. I'm done. Like, what do you mean I'm done? Check this out. It's going to be x squared over 18 plus y squared over 10 equals 1. What does that represent? My a squared. What does that represent? My b squared. How do I find my c? Remember, it's always this minus this. Always gets you your c squared. A squared minus b squared always gives you your c squared. So now you have everything that you need to type in the equation. That's what I'm going to type in. The more you do this, the more you see the patterns. Remember, c squared always equals a squared minus b squared. So would you agree 18 minus 10 is 8? And that's how you get the plus or minus 8. Type in x squared over 18 plus y squared over 10 equals 1. There we go. Now if you mess up, you can go to see step-by-step solution and see what they did. Now remember, they're going to use f squared equals p squared minus q squared versus, what do I like to use? Just the c squared equals a squared minus b squared. All right, but that's all you guys have to do when you're trying to build your equation from the features of an ellipse.